You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Hello, and thanks for joining Revolution 250. This is where we remember those important events that took place 250 years ago this week. This is a short bonus episode from the American Revolution podcast to remember these important 250th anniversaries from the Revolutionary War. This week, we remember Virginia's passage of the Declaration of Rights, which took place on June 12, 1776. At the same time that the Continental Congress was working on the Declaration of Independence, the 5th Virginia Convention in Richmond was working on a state constitution. A critical part of this process was establishing a Declaration of Rights. George Mason, who was a neighbor of Washington's, is generally given credit for being the primary drafter of the Declaration of Rights. Thomas Jefferson regularly corresponded with Mason and others who were working on the Declaration of Rights during this time, meaning that many of the principles and even some of the wording found their way into the Declaration of Independence as well. James Madison would also rely heavily on this document many years later when he drafted a Bill of Rights for the United States Constitution. The Declaration of Rights began by stating, quote, that all men are by nature equally free and independent and have certain inherent rights, of which, when they enter into a state of society, they cannot by any compact deprive or divest their posterity, namely, the enjoyment of life and liberty, with the means of acquiring and possessing property, and pursuing and obtaining happiness and safety. The Declaration of Rights continued by asserting that all power comes from the people and that its leaders are their trustees and servants. Government exists for the benefit of the people, and that any government, quote, found inadequate or contrary to these purposes, a majority of the community has an indubitable, inalienable, and indefeasible right to reform, alter, or abolish it in such manner as shall be judged most conducive to the public weal. The Declaration went on to condemn hereditary powers and also called for an independent judiciary. It called for public elections to choose leaders and rejected any powers for government to suspend laws contrary to those passed by the people through their legitimate representatives. People are entitled to basic due process, including jury trials, freedom from excessive bail, and protected from cruel and unusual punishments. It also said that search warrants had to be specific and supported by evidence to prevent unreasonable searches and seizures. The Declaration proclaimed the freedom of the press as, quote, one of the great bulwarks of liberty and can never be restrained but by despotic governments. The convention also continued, quote, that a well-regulated militia composed of the body of people trained to arms is the proper, natural, and safe defense of a free state, that standing armies in time of peace should be avoided as dangerous to liberty, and that in all cases the military should be under strict subordination to and governed by the civil power. The Declaration also emphasized equality under the law by prohibiting any government separate from or independent of the Virginia state government to be established within Virginia's borders. It reminded leaders that, quote, no free government or the blessings of liberty can be preserved to any people but by a firm adherence to justice, moderation, temperance, frugality, and virtue, and by frequent recurrence to fundamental principles. The final clause stressed the importance of religious freedom. Quote, that religion, or the duty which we owe to our Creator and the manner of discharging it, can be directed only by reason and conviction, not by force or violence, and therefore all men are equally entitled to the free exercise of religion according to the dictates of conscience, and that it is the mutual duty of all to practice Christian forbearance, love, and charity toward one another. The Virginia Declaration of Rights became part of Virginia's Constitution. It would also serve as a bedrock principle for many other documents in the United States and eventually all around the world. I hope you've enjoyed this Revolution 250 moment. For more on America's founding, please subscribe for free to the whole American Revolution podcast on whatever platform you like. It's available on Apple, Spotify, and dozens of other hosts. Thanks again for listening to this Revolution 250 moment on the American Revolution podcast.